Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the All Sports Betting Podcast T20 World Cup previews with myself, Steve Wiss, and Kevin Harper. Apologies for yesterday. We did not have any previews for the Monday fixtures. One was ended up a no result anyway, and the other was Bangladesh Netherlands, which we thought might end up a no result, which unfortunately Bangladesh did win. But apologies for no previews. Me and Kev were in no real fit state yesterday to record, but we are back raring today. There's one match on the Tuesday the 25th of October, and it is between Australia and Sri Lanka from Perth. So, Kev, just the one match on the schedule here for Tuesday. It is a 7 p.m. local time in Perth, which means it's a more sociable hour for those in Western Europe. Bit relieved there's only one match to go at.
Yeah, yes and no, Steve. Yes, because it's just one to focus on, and I seriously need to try and turn this thing around. But no, because I want to try and turn this thing around, and I want as many opportunities to do so as possible, because anything that could go wrong on Sunday did go wrong, and I'm eager to get back on the right side of things.
Yeah, I mean, in this Cricket World Cup, it's not like you've been in terrible form or anything. You've had several winners, but it feels like you've had a lot of bad luck go against you. I mean, you've lost some performance lines by, I think, 2 by half a point, or 1.5 points. The Pakistan result on Sunday, I don't know how they lose from that position. A lot of little things are adding up now. We're not having much in the way of rubber the green, which we really could do with getting, really, I think. So hopefully it starts here in this Australia against Sri Lanka game. Let's have a look at the conditions and the venue for this match. And we are in Perth, Western Australia. Right, one of the most isolated cities in the world, if not the most isolated, actually. There's a chance of rain, 30% chance of rain in the evening, as it is a 7 p.m. Kickoff time local. But really, it is not the sort of place where rain happens that often, and it'll be something that just comes off the coast, which is very hard to predict. And I'd imagine it won't have that much of an effect, Kev, really, here in Perth, will it?
It shouldn't do, because you're a day ahead of where the game is, mate. It's today their time, isn't it? So hopefully there's actually no rain on the forecast.
They're already. There we go. Yeah, we've got a completely. I thought your eyebrows sort of raised up when you saw a bit of rain forecast. This is a thing. Where's that come from? Well, now we know, don't we? Yeah, so we're fine. We're fine. Yeah, it's there's so many time zones that you get confused.
Don't make me put through. I've just gone through a couple of hours of researching bets, and if I've just done that for no reason, I would be livid.
Right. So it's going to be a nice day, and it's going to be nice and dry. Let's look at the odds for the game then. Australia are the 1-5 favourites effectively here against Sri Lanka. But Australia got off to a very poor start in this Cricket World Cup. And it was on Saturday. They lost against New Zealand. I was at my cricket club dinner that night, and a lot of people were talking about this game. And a lot of people were very happy because Australia cricket is not particularly popular over here in England. But a lot of people really enjoyed seeing them lose to New Zealand. They were terrible, I thought, really, certainly in all aspects of the game. They were thoroughly outplayed. It's not really what we expected. They looked like they needed a run or two in horse racing perspective. What on earth went wrong for Australia in that game, because they just weren't there?
Yeah, I don't know, Steve. I don't know if it was just a simple case of the fact that New Zealand hadn't won in Australia for 11 years, so Australia just thought they kind of overlooked it. Obviously, down the line, towards the end of this week, it's a pretty big game, isn't there? An even bigger game now, Australia against England. It might just be that they were looking to peak for that game and just thought that the other two were, if not formalities, certainly games that they didn't have to be 100% to win. Obviously, they found out in no uncertain style that they did need to be 100% to win it. There was also a lot of rain around Sydney and all of that, wasn't it? And it just all sort of said to me that Australia's minds weren't on the job, whatever the reason was. They, some of the dismissals were terrible, caught on the boundary. One of them, was it Aaron Finch, Mitchell Marsh? Someone played a reverse sweep and absolutely messed it completely up. It might have been Maxwell, actually, who done that. Either way, the dismissals were bad. The bowling was terrible. The captaincy was awful. I mean, you look at the New Zealand spinners in that game. They bowled 8 overs, something like, and I'm only going off the top of my head, something like 4 for 55. Australia bowled one spinner in the whole game on a pitch that is renowned for spin. So the whole shebang it just felt very, 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 very weird. Not too dissimilar to Sri Lanka in their opening game in the first round of this tournament, when anything that could go wrong for them against Namibia did do.
Sri Lanka are off to a winning start in this group stage. A very comfortable win, it must be said. 9-wicket victory against Ireland. They restricted Ireland to 130 odd and knocked it off just 1 wicket down. Kuzal Mendis in the runs. It was a pretty simple victory for Sri Lanka. I mean, they were the favourites in that game. But even you, I think, had a few slight doubts because they've got injuries at the moment. But they made light work of the Irish, didn't they?
Again, I don't get what was going on there. Ireland win their last 2 games of the first round group chasing with good run chases, win the toss, will bat first, thanks. Hey? You know, you've just won 2 chasing quite comfortably. You know, the whole world knows that their bowling attack is their weak link. And then they choose to bat. I mean, I couldn't understand that. Obviously, they made an absolute dog's dinner of the batting. And, you know, I've said all through the podcasts, Ireland can't win anything in this tournament if their batsmen don't come to the party. As it was, Sri Lanka did what all good teams should do and what England might still pay the price for not doing, and putting aside to the sword quickly. Net run rate with the rain around in this tournament is massive. And Sri Lanka have not just won, Steve, but like you say, won emphatically with some key players performing, which is important.
So Australia 1-5 favourites to rebound and win here. The match is played at Perth, and obviously England against Afghanistan was there. I don't know if there's been another match at Perth or not, but we know there's very short, straight boundaries there, bigger square ones. But I mean, there looked a lot of bounce in that pitch to me against Afghanistan. Even the Afghanistan bowlers were getting plenty out of it. So, I mean, this is surely a matchup that Australia should be dominating Sri Lanka, considering the type of bowlers they have, as opposed to Sri Lanka.
Yeah, but I mean, when you look at it, really, it's only really Stark, isn't it, that's going to rely on pace and bounce for Australia. Cummins is more of an accurate seam bowler, and Hazel is definitely a seam bowler, isn't he? So, and then Marcus Stoinis, I mean, he's whatever comes out the tom bowler for him. I still think Australia will win the game. I don't think Sri Lanka are going to struggle with the bat anything like as much as Afghanistan did against England. Sri Lanka have played against pace, and they've got a couple of good pace bowlers themselves, unfortunately, one of which is injured. So I think they'll cope fine with the bat. The only thing would be the kind of dimensions of this ground that, you know, Afghanistan tried to hit everything square, didn't they? And half of the time they couldn't get it through the infield, and when they did, because the boundaries are so big, all they can do is run 2. I would hope Sri Lanka would play smarter cricket here, because, I mean, if you look at this from an outright preview point of view, we probably are cheering Sri Lanka on here.
Yeah, definitely. And on to some bets for the game. Then you're not touching the outright market, but for those who like a 1-5 favourite to add to their accumulators or parlays or even straight on the nose, would you be backing Australia?
Well, I mean, if you want to pick one of the 2 sides, then yeah. But do I fancy them at 1-5? No, not really. Not at that price. Can I back a 1-5 shot who've just been beaten by 91 runs or whatever the margin of victory was by New Zealand? Absolutely no, I can't. On the flip side of that, can I really back Sri Lanka in Perth conditions, even at 7-2? Probably not, but it should be said, Steve, these 2 have played each other 8 times in T20 cricket this year, 5 times in Australia at the beginning of the year, 3 times in Sri Lanka in June. It's only 5-2 to Sri Lanka with a tie in there. Sorry, 5-2 to Australia with a tie in there. It's not like they're dominating these things. And 2 of those Australia victories were in Sri Lanka. So it was only 3-1-1 when they met at the start of the year. And one of the 3 that Australia won, they won in a super over. So, you know, history tells you that this isn't going to be as one-sided as these odds suggest. But clearly what's been swayed into here is what's going to be my reasoning for my first bet.
Yeah, and we're moving on to that first bet now, and it is over 6.5 Australia sixes at 8-11, a 4-unit selection at William Hill. Kev, you like the Aussies to hit a few maximums here, don't you?
Yeah, I think they've put themselves into a wall, haven't they? They've got to, because they've got 89 runs to make up between now and the end of the group stage, and probably even more than that, based on the fact that it looks like England and New Zealand are going to be troubling them to qualify. I mean, realistically, from here, Australia have got to win out, which includes beating England, and then they need England to beat New Zealand, so that all 3 teams finish on 4 games. And this is assuming that Sri Lanka don't compete in this group, which, with their injuries, they may not. And then the net run rate's going to come down to it with 3 teams on 4 points. On 4 wins. Well, Australia, if it comes down to net run rate right now, Australia may as well go home, pack the bags, don't even bother coming, because their net run rate, I mean, it's so far off the charts. It's lower than the pound against the dollar whilst Liz Truss was Prime Minister. It's ridiculously low. So they've backed themselves into a corner, Steve, where winning is no longer an option for them. I mean, of course, they have to win, but they don't just have to win. A 5-run win or a last ball finish is no good to Australia now. Their only modus operandi from here has to be, we have to win each game with 3-4 overs to spare, or by sort of 25-30 runs. They have to go over after those margins of victory in the hope that they can repair their net run rate and the results do go their way and they sneak through on net run rate with 4 wins. Of course, it's possible that New Zealand or England lose a couple of games, but the way they played in their first games, if I'm Australia, I'm not relying on that. So, they've got to come out here. They've got to come out here swinging. Even if this is a small run chase, they can't do what England did on this ground and pussyfoot around and tippy-tappy. There's none of that nonsense. They've got to do what Sri Lanka did to Ireland. Come out, get the chase under control, and then when it's under control, start going absolutely bonkers and hitting some sixes. The good thing for Australia is they've got a perfect ground to do it on here, because the small straight boundaries, I'll get it right in a minute, small straight boundaries mishit lengths for anyone in this Australia side. And, the Sri Lanka bowling can go. The other good thing that I like about Australia here, Steve, is that Mitchell Marsh, number 3 for Australia, he is playing on his home ground. And he's a big enough hitter, as are 1 or 2 others in this team, that even the square boundaries are in play for him. So, if you're backing Australia to win, you're almost as well to back them to hit these 7 sixes, because they have no other option other than to go big now.
Australia over 6.5 sixes, then 8 to 11 there for 4 units at William Hill. We're going to have a look into the top batsman market now. You've actually got a pick here on the top Sri Lankan batsman, and you are going with a 12 to 1 shot in. Tell me the name again. I've just got it down the screen. Yeah, Dasun Shanaka, top Sri Lankan batsman, 12 to 1.
Yeah, Sri Lanka captain. We should say that Pathan Nisanka's back for this game, which will be a positive for Sri Lanka. But the opening batsmen are going to have to go against Mitchell Starc, Josh Hazlewood, and Pat Cummins on a pitch that did plenty with the new ball. I mean, you only had to look at the grass covering. It was obviously going to do plenty with the new ball. Like you said, pace and bounce and everything else. So really, I think the top score here could come down the order, where the ball slightly loses a bit of its pace and where the weaker bowlers will be bowling. Why I like Shanaka, I mean, as I've said, these two have played each other 8 times this year, in T20 cricket. Shanaka's made 4 sort of poor innings, really, as you'd expect from someone down at 6 who's got to give his wicket away. But he's also scored 34 in Sydney, 39 in Canberra, 35 in Melbourne, and 54 not out in Pallekele, or Gaul to you and I. Those 4 innings are substantial when it comes to potentially top scoring. If you're getting around the 35 mark and your top order's been shot out, you're pretty much in the game, because no one below you is likely to score that, because they're not going to have enough balls to do it in. Shanaka's already top scored for Sri Lanka in this tournament as well, hasn't he? Top scored against Namibia in the opening game. 29 was enough on that occasion. This Australia attack's certainly much better than that Namibia attack. So that again highlights that the Sri Lankan top order, for all that they found form against Ireland, could still get blown away. And if they do, your captain at number 6, he can't go out there if they're 4 down early and just start swinging recklessly. He's got to repair the innings, do a bit of manipulation of the bowling, use the dimensions to his advantage, and then maybe if he's there at the end, he can go big. But given that he's got 4 scores of 34 or more against this very opponent in this calendar year, There are worse bets out there at 12-1.
Yeah, Shanaka top Sri Lankan batsman there for 1 unit at 12-1 with Corals. Let's have a look at the top Australian batsman market then. David Warner is the favourite. Had a bit of a freak dismissal, didn't he, against New Zealand. Finch, I've got to be honest, he didn't look that great to me. I thought Mitchell Marsh actually looked in fairly good touch before getting himself out. And then down the order there, Tim David had a big blow or two, didn't he, before, again, getting himself out. That was the theme of their innings. Who do you think's looking in good form, potentially, to get a big one here for the Aussies?
Yeah, Warner was the man who played that reverse sweep, wasn't it? Came off his pad, off his glove, and then he hit it onto his stumps. Couldn't have happened to a nicer bloke. Who do I fancy? Yeah, I've said a few times in this podcast, I'm a big fan of home players on home grounds. We backed Liam Livingstone in the wrong market on this ground, didn't we? But there was his home ground on Saturday when England played. And here in particular, these dimensions, you don't see these dimensions around the world very often.
No,
and you certainly don't see the pace and the bounce in this wicket very often. So I have a feeling Mitchell Marsh is going to have a big game here, Steve. Bookmakers are annoying the life out of me. I thought I was absolutely nailed on certain to get a performance line on Mitchell Marsh. Can I find one? Can I buggery? And he's probably a little bit too short to top score because or to back to top score because I expect Australia to be swinging right down the order. So even someone like Tim David or Matthew Wade could catch up if he's got enough balls.
Yeah, Mitchell Marsh. I think he looked good before he got out, and we are on him for the top Australian batsman in this tournament. And I agree. I think you could do a lot worse than him. This is a unique venue in world cricket, so that'll be different sort of conditions compared to what else you get. So just 2 bets for this game, then over 6.5 Australian sixes, and Shanaka top Sri Lankan batsman. Let's hope we can get a good game here. And I mean, we're certainly tuning on Sri Lanka because we backed him out right in the tournament. And I mean, final prediction then, do you think can they produce an upset? I guess a few things have got to go their way, but they can't be ruled out.
Well, they need Hasaranga to have a massive match, don't they? And then they need 2 batsmen to stand up and be counted. Just before we go, though, Steve, there's an awful lot of bookmakers. It's only William Hill that are offering 6.5 on that Australia sixes line. There are an awful lot of bookmakers that are going 7.5 at a bigger price. If you can only get on the 7.5, based on what I've just said, it is still worth taking. You've got to think that any meaningful score, Australia are going to go into double figures for sixes here, but just drop the stake down 1 just for safety. But yeah, I expect Australia to win. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't win, but I think Sri Lanka can only win if Hasaranga and 2 of the top 4 really stand up and be counted.
Brilliant. Well, best of luck with those then, Kev. As a reminder, you can check us out on the socials here. 4 Twitter accounts to follow, at ASBpod, at Kev's Hat, at Meatman Soccer, and at Kev's Hat Sports Bets. Check out Kev's website as well, kevshatsportsbets.com. So we'll be back for more previews for Wednesday's games. Take care of yourself and goodbye.